Hello, I'm Ralph Gable of the Electronics for the Inquisitive Experimenter YouTube channel. In the last video, I gave you 3 good reasons why I decided to install the 4 GHz expansion module into my RF Explorer Plus Slim. A link to this video is up there in the corner just for you. In this video, I will go through the process of unboxing and installing it. I will also introduce you to how to select and use it both in the standalone mode and when connected to a PC. If you have questions or comments, please feel free to add a comment to this video. I make a concerted effort to respond to every single comment. If you find this video helpful, please click on the like and don't forget to subscribe. Now, let's dive into the process of installing this module. To begin with, I want to point out that I'm doing this installation on the WSUB1G Plus, the slim version, which is in a white metal case like this one here. There are alternate installation instructions available if you have another model. I am carefully following the instructions provided by the RF Explorer folks for this installation. The link for the online form is in the description. I grabbed the contents of these instructions in all of their detail and created a PDF which is more printable. You may download this PDF using the link that I provided in the description. Now, be mindful that these instructions are the exact duplicate of the RF Explorer folks' instructions at the time of the creation of this video. If they make changes to their online version in the future, these changes will not necessarily be reflected in this PDF document. While this expansion module will work with firmware version 3.16 and later, the installation instructions from the RF Explorer folks recommend that you update the firmware on your RF Explorer to the latest and the greatest from them. At the time of the creation of this video, this is 3.33. To see which firmware version is currently installed on your RF Explorer, watch the screen carefully when you first turn it on. You will see the firmware version on the initial splash screen as you can see here. Well, let's run that just a little slower so that you can see it. The latest and greatest firmware for your RF Explorer may be downloaded by following the link in the description. Now that I am sure I have the latest and greatest firmware installed on my RF Explorer, let's gather a few minimal tools needed for the installation. At the outset, I have to emphasize that everything inside the case of the RF Explorer is potentially static sensitive. You must take appropriate precautions to prevent any static discharge to anything inside the box. In my case, I have a properly grounded anti-static mat that I will be working on. Some part of me will always be in contact with it before I touch any of the RF Explorer's innards. Now we're going to need some other tools as well. Not many, just a few. We're going to need an M2 hex key or Allen wrench, which takes a 1.5 millimeter wrench. We're going to need an 8 millimeter open end wrench. We're going to need a pair of needle nose pliers. I'm also adding a few other things like a marker in case I want to mark the position of something, a pair of tweezers in case I find the needle nose pliers hard to work with, a box cutter, and a small straight bladed screwdriver. Now that we have our RF Explorer prepared for the installation and our workstation ready to go, let's open the box and see what's inside. Now, we'll be discovering this together because I haven't even broken the seal on the box yet. Okay, well, let's see what's in the box. You can see I haven't even cut this yet. Hey, look at that. I get to use my box cutter. So we're going to cut the seal. And we're going to open the box. And what do we find inside? Let's see. We have a nut and lock washer for the SMA connector. We have the PC board, and notice that it's in this kind of off blue package, which means this is anti-static packaging. And there's the module. They have a little cap over the SMA connector, which we're going to have to take off later. And so there it is, all ready to go. Look at that, huh? And there doesn't appear to be anything more in the box, no instructions or anything in the box. All of those are available online. So there we go. The board and a nut and a lock washer. That's what we have in our box. All right, now we're ready to begin the installation of our lovely little module here. According to the instructions, the first step in the installation process is to use our M2 hex keys to take these 4 screws out of the back. Now, this is static sensitive. I want to make sure I am at the same potential as this thing is. So I'm going to touch the barrel of the SMA connector. I'm also in contact with my anti-static mat. So now everything's at the same potential. We're good to go. Now I'm going to put my screws in this little container here because I want to make sure that I don't lose them. So I'm going to start out with this one. This one's just a little bit bigger than this one, and I'd rather have a snug fit, so let's give that a try. Number 4 screw out. Now once the back cover comes free, carefully disconnect the battery from the main board assembly using your needle nose pliers to grip the body of the connector and to pull it free. Do not pull on the wires. Now I've never had this apart, so I don't know what to expect. I'm not sure which side the wires are going to be on. The wires are on my side, so I'm going to flip it over this way. You can see the battery connector right down here. Don't pull on the wires. This is your battery. So we're going to take our needle nose pliers and we're going to grab the battery connector housing itself and try to pull this free very gently. Don't just yank on it. Note there's a rib along the top. That's a polarizing rib. And the red wire is closest to the casing here. That way we can make sure that we get it back in the same orientation when we plug it back in later. Now, we're told to set the battery aside, so I've done just that. The battery is now set aside. Here's the lovely thing. Now, there's some metallic fabric tape stuck in place between the PCB and the middle case. Carefully note the locations and orientation of these pieces of conductive tape. Now we need to be very careful when we remove this tape. We don't want to damage it. We're going to be needing it again later when we put things back together again. Well, because this is tape and that means it's sticky, I got my roll of double stick tape. This red part is the no stickum part. So I'm going to, when I take the pieces of conductive fabric tape off, I'm going to stick them on here so that they come off nice and easy. I'm noting that there is a bare spot in the middle case here that it's stuck to. I'm noting that it is only on this gold-plated pad here. It's not overlapping onto anything else. We have the same experience over on this side. We have the bare spot in the middle case, and we have the gold here. It is not overlapping. There's a trace right here. It's not overlapping onto that trace, so we just have to very carefully take this apart. Now they want us to take these tapes off, having noted their position, and so I'm going to do just that. Yay! Piece one off. There, and I've stuck it to my no stick part. I'm hoping the other one comes off more easily. I'm tempted to try my box cutter to I'm having a lot more success, I think, carefully taking this off with my box cutter. Now, I'm not cutting, I'm just using the very sharp edge to be able to get underneath it in a way that my tweezers and all of that can't seem to be able to do. This one's coming off more easily. I think it's because I'm using a different technique. Yay! Number 2 off and onto my no stick part. There, I got my 2 pieces of tape off. Now with the RF Explorer still sitting on its face like this, we pull the middle cover and the PCB back free to free the front cover. Make a note of the position of your power switch here. Here's the original SMA connector. Here's the green end. Here's the black end. There's the new one. So we're going to lift this up, keeping the front panel on the table. And now we're going to take this just like it is, and we're going to set it aside. All right, so there we go. And now we get to use our 8mm wrench. We have to take this nut off of here. So we just, there we go. And we're going to take our bowl again. We're going to put the nut in the bowl and the washer in the bowl. At this point, they want us to lift the board up in this direction and then slide it out the back. So let's see if we can do that. It goes up. And then it, careful now. I'm noting that there is a lock washer here. We don't want to lose that lock washer. Notice too that this power switch just flopped down on the ground or on the table, and we note its position, but also notice that it's kind of keyed, which is cool. And there are little key marks down here where that fits in between. So that will help make sure that we get it back in the same orientation. Now we can set both these things aside. I'm also noticing that there are little washers around these 2 screws here. These are specific to make sure that the ground of this is connected to the ground of the mounting for the back panel. All right, so we're looking good so far. So we got the PCB on the bench. We can position it this way just so that we know what the orientation is. Now it's time to look at the expansion board. Now we're touching the bag, we're touching our anti-static mat. We're all at the same potential here. And so now we open the bag. Again, notice I'm making a point of touching my anti-static mat before I make contact with the board. My first contact with the board is on the barrel of the SMA connector. All right, now if we take this and we orient it this way, you'll notice that there is a 16-pin female header here, and there is a 16-pin male header here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take this board and we're going to flip it over this way, and then these 16 pins, notice it's a dual row of 8 pins, have to line up with each one of the pins in here. So we're going to flip that over. In fact, I'm going to pick it up on its side so I can really see the pins. And I'm going to make sure that all of the pins go exactly where they're supposed to go before I push it home. And you can see that the connector is fully seated right here. Plastic to plastic on that. Now you can see that the expansion board is connected to our main board. Now you have to be absolutely positively certain that these pins are lined up properly, because it's real easy to get those off, and you don't want to have them off. Now at this point in the installation instructions, the RF Explorer folks have a pause before we put this thing back together again with the expansion board. And I'm not going to reinvent the wheel with all the precautions that they're giving, so pardon me, I'm just going to read them to you. They say, review very carefully your battery is not making contact with any PCB or connector anywhere. So as I look at the battery, while it is in a sealed case in the back here, so I'm not too worried about that. The battery should have been assembled in the factory in such a way that it would be in an area far from the expansion module contacts. However, if you see the battery in risk of contacting the PCB connector or anything else, you must fix that before assembling the RF Explorer unit back together. Always proceed very carefully with the lithium-ion battery and make sure it is not punctured, damaged, or inflated in any way. A healthy battery is flat, rectangle, no signs of deformation. If you have any doubt, please take a picture of your unit and send it to us for further help. Read the article found in the description for additional information on battery handling and care. Well, in this case, they must not be talking about this particular battery because it is encased in a complete enclosure with just leads hanging out. So I don't think we have to worry about that too much with this particular unit. Now we're ready to begin the assembly. And before we do anything, we have to take this cap off of here. So we're going to do that. Now I'm not pulling it off, I'm rotating it, unscrewing it as it were, off the end of the SMA connector. Here we go. All right. Now it's interesting that they have a lock washer on this side of the bulkhead. They have an additional lock washer that goes on the outside of the bulkhead when it's put together. In this particular case, we have been given a single lock washer. So one wonders which side of the bulkhead that wants to be on. All right. Let's just set this a bit aside here. We're going to take out the middle case. Now, if we take a look at the middle case, we have the original opening, and we have the secondary opening. They got a little rubber plug in the secondary opening. You can see that rubber plug in there. And so that rubber plug has to be removed. I'm going to push it out from behind using my screwdriver. And based on the fact that there is bare metal on the inside and painted metal on the outside, I think I'm going to go with the single lock washer on the inside here, just so that the SMA connector makes really good connection with our middle case here. All right, remembering how the power switch was in, we need to make sure it goes back in the same orientation. Again, we can see the key, the keyed end, and the little things down here at the bottom. So we're going to put this back the same way it came out, just like that. You know, that wants to just flop out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take just a little tiny piece of blue painter's tape, and I'm going to stick it over that. Now make sure that this is in the off position, which is black this way. All right. So now we orient the board in this position. We can see the two holes up here. And we're again making sure that we are in contact with our ESD mat and making contact. Oh, we got to put our washer on this first. So let's do that. Okay, now I have the nut. I'm going to put the nut in here. I'm going to put the lock washer on my connector. Okay, so I have a lock washer here, a lock washer here. And as it came out, just in the reverse operation, we have this at an angle. And we aim the SMA connectors for the respective holes. And we kind of drop things down in place and push them into the holes here. And we're also looking down at the power switch to make sure that there's a little slot in the back of the power switch toggle thing that the power switch has to make contact with. So I'm trying to push this home here. There we go, there we go, there we go. And it just drops down into place, just like that. Now we retrieve our front cover and we orient it this way on the table. You can see here the display, which looks like it's gathered a little dust on my bench, which doesn't surprise me a whole bunch. I'm going to retrieve my microfiber cloth here that I use for cleaning my glasses. I'm going to make sure that it's fully discharged. That's one thing I need to be careful of. So I'm touching it, I'm touching this, I'm touching this, and I'm just going to clean off the dust that collected on the face of this before I put things together. All right. And now they want us to set this assembly down in place on that. Now that everything's in place, I'm going to take my little blue tag off here. Don't need that anymore. All right. Now comes the fun of putting the metallic tape back in place. So I have my metallic tape right here. And I remember that the one that isn't so mangled is the one that's closest to me here. And because it's really important, we do not want this to come in contact with the vias or the traces or any of the things that are over here. Because that is the case, that's the most important side to have absolutely right. So that's the part that we're going to start with first. And in comes the tweezers and the screwdriver. And it's centered right on this bare metal. So we're going to get it exactly in place. Okay, you can let go of my... All right. So that appears to be completely adhered to both sides. As you can see, we got the tapes put back exactly where they came out of. This one's a little worse for wear, but it's there and it is definitely stuck in place very nicely. Now we make sure that the power switch is still turned off, which it is. And it's time to retrieve our battery pack and back panel. So you can see the writing is down here. The 4 screws, we can see the place for the 4 screws here. And with the power switch completely turned off, they want us to reconnect the battery. Now we're remembering now that the red is toward the case, the rib is up. We're going to orient the connector. I'm having to lift this up. You can't, this is a two-handed operation here. Now I'm pushing on the body of the connector and it clicks in place with a decided click when it's in place. Now that the battery has been connected in place, it's time to put the back cover onto the whole unit and put the screws in. Now notice how this is kind of flopped here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of come at it like this. I'm going to slide this in place like this, which, see, there's a little tab on the back here, which is going to come in contact with this to push that up into place. So I'm going to put that down like this. I'm going to slide it into place and then drop the back end in. All right. Now we're ready to put the 4 screws in place. 1, 4, yes, I can count. Now, inspect around the entire perimeter. Make sure that everything is fully seated the way it's supposed to be seated before you put this tighten the screws down. Now, all I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten these screws until they just start to get tight, but I'm not, you can see I'm not working very hard at this. All right, now I'm going to go back to the original screw, tighten it a little bit more, go to this screw, tighten it a little bit more, and this screw, and tighten it a little bit more, and this screw. All right, now we're ready to do the final. Now remember, you don't want these to rattle loose, so you want them good and snug, but it's not like, you know, the lug nuts on the tires on your vehicle either, so you just want to make sure that they're good and snug, but not overly tightened. All right. And the case all looks good in here. Case is all the way it looks. You can see the USB connector through the little window here. Everything looks like it's, but there's no nuts here yet. So we need to put the nuts on the SMA connectors. I'm going to stick a lock washer on that SMA connector. My 8mm wrench. Again, we want this snug. We don't want it rattling loose, but it's not a lug nut on your tire either. All right, so now we'll take the other nut. Again, we're just snugging. It's a great big long wrench, so it's really easy to over tighten things. We're just snugging into place here. All right, so we have our nuts in place here. The case is all together. It's in there. We are ready for its maiden voyage. Oh, there's the heebie-jeebies, you know. You know, what's going to happen when I turn this thing on? You know, we all get these kinds of feelings, even if we're almost certain we did everything absolutely right. So here goes nothing, and here goes everything. I have not turned this on yet, so we're going to both see what happens together. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, on. Now that we've had a successful power-up, let's see if we have achieved our goal. To see if I have extended frequency range, I will set my old Hewlett-Packard signal generator to 2 gigahertz with an output of minus 30 dBm. I will connect this directly to my RF Explorer. Then I need to set my RF Explorer for a center frequency of 2 gigahertz with a span of 10 megahertz. To use this newfound awesomeness, you have to choose between the 2 frequency modules, the 2 inputs. To do this, you go to the menu, you go to the frequency menu. At the very bottom, you'll notice it says module. Right now it's set to 50K to 960 meg. So if I choose that particular option and hit the little circle, enter, that toggles between the 2 modules. Now you'll notice it says 240 to 4000 megahertz. And then you hit the back, and now I am in using the new module, which is where my connector happens to be at the moment. I've showed you how to set up your RF Explorer in handheld autonomous mode. Now we're in the software. If you go to Device, you'll notice Enable Left SMA Connector, Enable Right SMA Connector. We want the right one, that's the high frequency one. And now we're going to set our frequency to 2000 and our span to 10 megahertz. And looky there. There's our 2 gigahertz signal on the screen. Yes, 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 indeed, we have achieved our goal of extended frequency range. I have completed the installation of the 4 gigahertz expansion module. If you found this video helpful, do click on like and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, Toodle-Oots.